Hello, all beautiful souls that are joining today. This is Atul Krishna Das. I am your host. And today we continue with the path of Karma Yoga. In this special session, we're going to speak a little bit about those times when we are so worried about the everyday things that we're supposed to be doing. And like, am I doing things right? I'm doing things wrong, and perhaps we forget the purpose of karma yoga, of offering everything to god, to krishna, and how that is freeing instead of a burden. And for the unique perspective that we're having today, we will be having the wonderful Haripriya with us. Hello, Haripriya, how are you doing?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you so much.
So we'll dive right in. I have a story to tell about this verse. So we're gonna do chapter 3, text 27. But I've heard this verse, growing up, and I remember not understanding it and thinking, what do they mean? That's not true for me. And so then something happened to me, and I'll just share that little anecdote. So when I was living in Italy many years ago, and I got very sick. I don't need to go into the details, but I was bedridden. I could barely move. I was very weak, and it would take me like I'm maybe exaggerating, but it would take me about 20 minutes or so to just walk from where I was, across the room. And I'll share why. Hello, Colleen. Nice to have you here on a Monday. I'm not usually here on Mondays. So basically, one time I remember wanting a cup of water or wanting a drink, and I was lying in bed, and there was a table farther away from me, and I remember thinking, okay, I want to get a drink, and I had to just wait. Like my body did not respond to that desire. I had the desire and nothing happened. I was so sick, I was so weak that my body slowed down so much that I could actually see the process that we all experience daily. And what happened was is I had a flash in my mind of my body rolling over on its side. And then I would just wait, and a few more seconds would pass, and then lovely to see you as well. Um, and then my body would roll, and then I would lay there longer. I'd lay there for seconds, waiting and waiting, and everything slowed down. And I'd have a flash of like my hand pushing on the bed. And I would just wait though. My hand didn't do it. It was almost like I had the desire, then my mind had the understanding of what would go next. And then my body took more seconds even to respond to that. So then eventually my hand would touch the bed. And then I would have this image or understanding of like I'm going to push off the bed, but my body didn't do it. I'd be waiting and waiting, and then eventually my body would push myself up. And I slowed down so much that all of a sudden this verse that I had heard before started to make sense to me, where I understood that inside this body, the animating force is the self, is consciousness, right? We've covered this so many times in so many classes that we're the conscious being that's within this body. We have will, we have desires, we have intentions. But actually, because of the fast pace that we go, like right now, I'm moving my hand up and down, and I'm wanting it to do this, and it's doing it, and it's doing it so fast that I think I'm the doer. I think I'm picking up this book, I'm putting it down. But I was slowed down due to an illness so much that I saw that I'm not the doer. I saw it and I understood it, that I have a desire, I have a will, and then my mind responds to that. And then from my mind, my body responds. And it slowed down enough for me to understand that actually the our material bodies and all of the material energies that are, that we utilize, they're doing the work actually. And so in this verse, where it speaks about us being bewildered, us being kind of in the illusion that we're the doers, and I understand that that illusion comes because of the fast pace of the responses. So because our body and our mind and the material energies are responding to our will and our desires so quickly that we don't see that we're not the doer. And so I feel really grateful that I had that experience where I could understand more deeply that on a practical level, I'm not the doer. I'm desiring something, and then it's sanctioned. It's sanctioned by, higher powers, God, and then nature allows it to take place. So it's being permitted by God and then supported and actualized by material nature, by my body. It's not even me, right? It's not intrinsically myself. It's part of nature. And so I'm gonna read this verse, and I have a little bit more on that story. But in this verse it says, the bewildered spirit soul, that's us, under the influence of the three modes of material nature. We can speak a little bit about that, but there's three MOs in this world. There's passion, like go, go, go. There's tamas, like lethargy, or like trying to get something for free, or just slower modes, like ignoring parts of reality. I like to say for the word ignorance, it's like we ignore parts of reality. We ignore that we're not the body. We ignore that reality. So we get illusion. And then there's sattva, which is like mode of goodness. And this could be like kind actions and charity work and goodness and so many wonderful things, but it's still a mode of the material realm where we could still have a false ego and think I'm the doer, that I'm Haripriya and I'm doing everything. I'm giving this class, I'm picking up this book, and to some degree, then I'm illusioned. That's an illusion because the truth of the matter is that I'm a soul and I'm in the body of this female. I'm in this female body, and this body is responding to my desires. This body is responding to what I'm wanting to happen, and it's sanctioned by forces greater than me. Because when I was lying in that bed, I wanted to move much quicker, and I had no power to. It wasn't it wasn't my choice. It was no longer a choice, and that's when I understood that we're granted the abilities that we have. We're granted them. It's not a given. It's not automatic. So it says that we get under the influence of these three modes, right? Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva. All of those are different MOs, but they're modes of the material world. They're not modes of spiritual consciousness. They're modes of how it works on this material platform. So we get influenced by these modes, and then we think ourselves, it says, thinks himself the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by nature. And I remember so clearly going, what do you mean? I am the doer. What are you talking about? I am the doer. I'm the one picking up the book. And I really understood this, that, oh my God, I'm not the doer. And not to say that I remember that all the time. I would love to see what my life could look like if I remembered that reality all the time. I also can get covered again and again and again with this illusion that I am Haripriya and I'm my desires and I'm what I'm doing. But actually, when we slow down, and that's what I spoke about in the title, when we really slow down, when we take some breaths, and we go a little bit deeper and we ask some real questions, sincere questions like, who am I really? What is permanent? What is the part of me that you can never separate from me, right? Because this body will be separated from me. Like I will not always be in this body. That means this body is not me. So asking questions like that, deeper questions like what parts of me are permanent? And then if that's the permanent aspects of me, what what is real then? Like for example, we are joyful. We are alive and vibrant. That's our nature as living souls. We're full of love. We're full of generosity and care and affection and vibrancy. And we have all these qualities. Those are real, and those are actually permanent. And then we've allowed ourselves to be covered by the modes of nature. We've allowed ourselves to be covered by illusions that say that, oh, or that make us think, rather, make us think that we are these bodies and that we are any type of person. We misidentify. We misidentify with our sex. Like we misidentify with, oh, I'm a female, so I'm like this, and you're a male, and you're like that. And it's like, well, wait, what's the permanent part of it? What am I really? And that permanent part is always serving, always serving. And if you think about it and you look around, and I touched on this in the last class actually, is that we might choose what we serve, right? We could serve our senses, we can serve our tongue, we can serve God, we can serve our family or our friends, our pets, we can serve the government, we can serve society, we can serve the poor, we can serve our church or our temples. We can choose where we direct our service. But the soul, the self, the permanent part of us is always serving. And serving in a way, and I love this word, in Sanskrit, instead of the word service, the word is seva. And now seva does not have a good English equivalent because the word seva doesn't just mean service. It doesn't mean service in the way we think, oh, I'm going to do something for someone else or something else I'm going to serve. Seva means service, but it also means nectar. Seva means something that's delicious, something that's enjoyable, that's juicy, that's fun, that's exciting, it suits our psychophysical nature. So when we find our seva, like our real seva, our service is something that we love doing. So what we offer, we mentioned a tool in the beginning, mentioned about serving and offering what we have to God, and that gives us deep satisfaction, really deep satisfaction, because that's connected to a permanence. So if I'm serving something that's temporary, I get some satisfaction. But if the most permanent part of me is where service comes from. So if I'm serving something permanent, then everything in that is permanent. It means I'm permanent. If I'm serving someone or something permanent, meaning God or higher powers or the absolute or our source, whatever we define, however we understand our source to be. So I understand our source to be God, to be a personality that's full of love and full of juiciness and vibrancy and has all these permanent qualities that the self has. That's where we come from. So it's like we're made in the image of God. So we have those same qualities and God has those qualities. So now if we're serving seva, we're doing something that we love, something that's juicy and delicious that we love, and we're offering that in service. We're dovetailing whatever we love in service to someone who's permanent. Then every part of that exchange is permanent. Every part of that exchange is touching our true selves, our permanent selves. And that kind of satisfaction is it's it fills you up. It fills you up and it satiates you. It is what we are all searching for. It is the experience that we are all searching for, is this connection with God in a way that we know that there's love, there's affection, there's permanence, there's joy, and we're finding what suits I'll say our psychophysical nature. So we're utilizing our material energies, we're utilizing our material body and resources and our inclinations, but we're dovetailing it as an offering of love to God. Then in that experience, we are connected in the most perfect way to permanence and to our real, true, permanent selves. So, in that, we're feeding the deepest part of ourselves. We're feeding the truest part of ourselves. So, here, this verse, when it says the bewildered spirit soul, that's when we've forgotten. When we're bewildered, that's when we're doing the carrot and the stick, like, oh, if I have this, then I'll feel good. Or if I do this, then I'll feel good. and we're still not satisfied, right? Like, I can't get no satisfaction. I mean, they wrote songs about it, right? So it's this is like such human experience that we are not satisfied. We want more and more and more. And I'm trying to teach it to my 7-year-old son. You know, he won a game, and then next time he doesn't win, he's upset, and it's like he wants to win every time and win. And it's we want more. You want candy when you eat some. Well, you want more. It's not satiating us. It's not satisfying us because it's not touching us. It's not touching our souls. It's not, you know, if we feed ourselves something, or we even buy a fancy car, or we live in a beautiful home, or whatever it is, or we get a Grammy, it's that is not permanent, and it's not touching the most permanent part of ourselves. So it might have satisfaction. We might get some satisfaction, but it's not filling our true selves. It's not feeding our true selves. And therefore, we need more and more and more and more. And when you fill your true selves, the more comes as well, but the more comes from the inside out. So we talked about this in one of the classes about like the concept of be, do, have. Like, I am good. I am enough. I am satisfied. And from that, what do I do? And what do I have? So I'll naturally do and have what someone who is satisfied and empowered and fulfilled does and has. So, but a lot of times we're living in the illusion, and these are the material modes. We're living in the illusion of if I have this, then I'll be able to do what I want and be happy. So that's starting, it's like backwards. We're starting from that which is the farthest away. If I have this, right, that's the farthest from the self. There's the having, there's the doing, and there's the being. So the more we can stop and go, okay, I am a being. We are beings, right? So if we connect to that reality first, then what are my natural qualities? What are the soul's intrinsic qualities? And we connect to that and we understand that to some degree, then from there we might be inspired to do and have. So we might do service in a way that is fits our material nature. And then it becomes transcendental. It becomes above the modes. So be do have is like sattvic living. So it's still within the modes of nature. But then we transcend that when we offer it to God. So because when we offer it to God, now we're connected to our being, our truest self. We're engaging our psychophysical nature in something that we love as an offering. We're dovetailing that as an offering to our source. And now, and in this verse, it talks about this, that everything we have actually belongs to our source. So this body that I have, I'm borrowing it. I'm borrowing it. And anything around us materially, it's not ours permanently. We're borrowing everything. It's all the material energy actually is not permanently ours. So then if we utilize everything around us or our body, our psychophysical nature, we utilize all that as an offering. Now we're using it properly because it already belongs to our source. It already belongs to God. And so when we offer it to God, then we develop our love. We reawaken that loving relationship and that connection that's permanent. And we feel satisfied. And it's properly using everything in this world for the proper purpose, which is God, since that's God is the owner, actually. And then in that, then there's love. Then there's a loving exchange. And from that, we get all kinds of mercy. Like they say, if you take one step towards God, God takes 1,000 towards you. And I don't know if it's 1 to 1,000. I can't vouch for that exact number, but I can vouch that when you do anything that's, especially things that might be a little challenging, you know, like maybe you're like, oh, I really don't want to wake up in the morning, but I want to see what does it feel like to meditate with God in the early mornings before the sunrise. I'll just do that. So you get out of bed and you feel like, oh, this is kind of, I don't really want to do this. It's much more comfortable to be like cozy in my warm blanket and it's dark out. But you push through that and you think, no, I'm going to offer an hour of my time in a connection with God. And whether that's talking to God, chanting God's names, even journaling to get clarity, but you're in a meditative state where you're asking God questions or you're wanting some dialogue or connection, then in that, you're taking a step towards Him and you're offering something, you're sacrificing some comfort, to offer your time and focus, I have time and time again gotten the repayment of that offering and felt deeply loved and supported, and that God's real, and that you can feel that and know that right now in this lifetime, in this form, in this body. So usually we're bewildered by the modes of nature and we're not engaging in those kinds of spiritual actions. Usually we're just on autopilot and running by what the mind and the body are thinking they want, but we're misidentifying with what the mind and the body is. So if we again connect to who we really are and then spend our time, even if it's just offering something, a little something, each day, a little something, it adds up. So then we're offering our time, and then we can also get these blessings of realizations. And for me, I'll be honest, that experience I had in Italy, I know it was God repaying me. It was like, I know it was God helping me know the truth because I was sincere. And I remember reading this and saying, he thinks himself the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by nature. And I was like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? But I was sincere. I wasn't rude. I wasn't challenging. I was just like, no, I don't get that. I don't understand it. I'm honest with myself. And years later is when I had that experience, when I was like, oh, I get it now. So that's my offering for this verse. I'll read a tiny bit of the purport. Two persons, one in Krishna consciousness and the other in material consciousness, working on the same level, may appear to be working on the same platform, but there is a wide gulf of difference in their respective positions. The person in material consciousness is convinced by false ego that he is the doer of everything. And that's the illusion. And to some degree, we want this illusion or we wouldn't be on this planet. And that's like a whole nother topic. But to some degree, we want to be the doers. And so God's giving us that illusion as an offering to us to satisfy our desires, to want to be, maybe to want to be the most powerful or the most beautiful or to be the center of attention or to be, the loved one or the generous one or the something. We have some desires. And so we can start to look at that, like, what do I really want? What did I want last lifetime that brought me into this body? What are the desires that I wanted that God's fulfilling now in my experience? And then what desires do I want to consciously choose? Because in this, it's sharing that our false ego, we're convinced by our false ego that we're the doers. So if I teach a seminar and I'm like, yep, I taught that seminar, I wanted that experience, right? And I might do that, but if I'm doing it with spiritual consciousness, then I'm going to do what it takes to put on the seminar and offer it. And I'm a vessel, and whatever God inspires me to offer, I'm offering. And ultimately, I'm very dependent. I'm very dependent on the sanction and the blessings and the support of both God and nature, both. And that actually, there's another text much later. I think maybe it's in the 15th chapter. It talks about it's the 15th or the 18th, but it talks about the different components of action. But to stay on track, so if I'm teaching that seminar and here I have God consciousness, spiritual consciousness, then I know that I'm not the doer. I know that the transformation others get in that seminar, which recently there was a seminar and it was amazing. And there was 27 people who were over the moon and had so much gratitude. And I was able to remember that God is in all their hearts and God is guiding them and leading them. And whatever little offering myself and the other facilitators brought was a blessing. It was a blessing from God. And it was, we got to participate in the transformation of people's lives. And in that, we could be doing the same thing, but I could be thinking, I'm a facilitator. Just see how I did so good for others and just see the impact I made. That's the false ego. So I could be doing the exact same things, but if my consciousness is I'm the doer versus my consciousness is I'm a soul that gets to engage in this service. And God is allowing me, empowering me, or inspiring me He's the supreme facilitator, and He's facilitating that I get to facilitate. So both consciousnesses change our experience tremendously. And I don't have too much time, but if we really stay in the spiritual consciousness, it is more freeing. As Atul mentioned, it is more freeing because in that there's no pressure. There's no, "Oh, I have to perform. I have to impact these people. I better not mess up. I have to, right? Because as soon as we think we're the doers, we automatically, we have so much pressure, so much pressure. That's not natural, actually, because we're not the controllers and we're not the doers. So then our pressure comes and then we have all this anxiety. When actuality, if we can practice more trust that God is holding each of us, every person that's interacting with us, God is taking care of them. And if we want to offer something, we offer it knowing that there's we're a vessel, like we're an intermediary, but the real source of their support and their care or their of whatever we're offering, the service we're offering for the other person, the real source of their support is God. And so I love that it says so clearly that yes, if the person in the material consciousness is convinced by false ego that he's the doer of everything, he does not know that the mechanisms of the body, that the mechanism of the body is produced by material nature, which work under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. The materialistic person has no knowledge that ultimately he is under the control of Krishna or God. The person in false ego takes all the credit for doing everything independently, and that is the symptom of his nescience. He does not know that his gross and subtle body, the subtle body is the mind, is the creation of material nature under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as such, his bodily and mental activities should be engaged in the service of God consciousness or Krishna consciousness. So we forget about God. We forget that we've been gifted these bodies. We forget that we're not the doer. And we wanted these experiences, but they're not what brings the soul ultimate satisfaction. And so in this life, the work is to transform our desires, like recognize, okay, I had a desire to experience something. And if I stick with that desire, I'm going to keep being dissatisfied. If I can start to shift my desires to, I want truth. I want, I want real, I want to live in a way that is resonant with who I actually am as a soul. And what does that mean? So when we actually start to want only truth and we're ready to transform our desires, engage our desires in a way that will bring us closer to truth and to permanence, like our real nature of being eternal, of being permanent, and of being joyful, and of being satisfied, and being service oriented. These are our natures. So when we turn in that direction, then we are so nourished that everything else becomes like easier to give up. It's a higher taste, right? Srila Prabhupada used to say that a lot, gaining a higher taste. Like if you say, oh, here's a nicer dessert, then someone might give up some other food that didn't taste as good. But if they have the mediocre food and you're like, don't eat that, that's like, but if you give them something that tastes better, then naturally they won't eat the other stuff. So it's that same thing in our service and in engagement. So as Prabhupada's saying, everything should be offered to God because actually God's the one that granted us these bodies. He's the one that granted us all of the everything that's on this planet, all the material natures. And he's the one that granted us our intelligence and our subtle body. And so if we're misusing everything around us to try to gratify ourselves, we are going to be unsatisfied, and which makes him forget his eternal relationship. Yeah. So then we get bewildered. We get bewildered because we think we're the doers, and then because we're not, I don't want to say we crumble, but the weight of the pressure, if we actually were the doer, comes. And when we can't control reality, like my son and I were in a car accident recently. I actually cannot protect my son. I do as much as I can, but it's God that protected my son. And so in that, and in how I teach him and try to be a role model for him, if I'm in the consciousness that I'm the mom, I'm the protector, and I'm not remembering that actually God's taking care of him and I'm going to do my best as a mother, then I will feel defeated and I will crumble. Like even this morning, I had a moment where I was feeling like I wasn't enough because I wasn't able to help him have his ice pack on his back and help him do his exercises for his physical therapy. And I remember thinking, oh, what am I doing? Like I'm supposed to be doing more for him, but I'm also taking care of all the normal things I do and my own body that's been, injured. And so I need to ice and do my physical therapy exercises. And I got emotional and I cried. And actually, my mother said some amazing words to me. She reminded me of when I was very young, and she and I were in a car accident, actually. And my father said to her, without getting into too much of the details, she was feeling anxious because she couldn't provide something for me because she was in the hospital. And my father said, do you really think you're the one protecting her? Do you think you're the one that's going to protect her, take care of her, meaning me? He said, it's God that saved you and her from that car accident. So it's God that's taking care of her. And when my mom shared that to me, it was the medicine for my soul because then I could understand, okay, I'm going to do my best and I'm not in control. I'm going to do my best and I'm not the doer. I will offer him as much as I can to take care of him and his body, and I want to trust and stay in that consciousness that he's being looked after, that he's also being looked after by his real father, his permanent, loving, supreme supporter and father and provider. So if we're in that consciousness, everything becomes more enjoyable also because we're able to feel less pressure and offer even more than if we were in the illusion that we're in control and we're the doers and it all rests on our shoulders. We're actually we're handicapped by that concept, by that false ego, where our power and our strength and our clarity are diminished as opposed to supported. So even in our material world, we can do more and offer more and succeed more and serve people more and accomplish more if we have the proper spiritual consciousness, actually, than if we have the material consciousness. Thank you. Thank you, Sienna. I'm so happy you joined.
Thank you so much for that, Haripriya. And I think there are many things that we can take from this. I love the idea of taking a moment, especially at the beginning of the day, to remind ourselves who we are, to try to center ourselves, to try to start with positive energy. And I love the idea that true seva is something so gratifying, so fulfilling, and sometimes we are so stuck in what we want and we don't feel um, fulfillment from it. We may feel that there's something wrong with us
Mm,
or with our goals or how we're doing things. And this is just an indication, that hey, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. This is not your true seva, and perhaps is a nudge to try to look in a different way. But I do
mm,
have a question, if you can, very quickly,
okay, what?
because we can do, a daily exercise at the beginning of the day to try to remember ourselves that we are ourselves that are serving Krishna. But it's very difficult to remember who we are and who he is
Mm,
when we are in truly challenging times, in the middle of desperation, in the middle of all of those emotions that clouds ourselves.
mm.
Is there something that you could provide as an advice to try to to make it easier to remember in those times?
Wow. Well, I think we're all so unique because already I have questions for you from that question. I'm thinking, well, what do you mean? Like, I mean, I've had moments when I was like, I'll say in deep suffering, and it was the easiest to think of God in those times because I had nothing else. So that's one category. But then there's other categories like Okay, there's times when we want something a certain way and we're so frustrated and upset because we think it's supposed to be, it would be good this way, and then it's not. So those times, yeah, that's, then we're thinking we're the controller and we're not allowing what is to be. And we haven't found like that balance of, interacting with the world and accepting, like the give and take. So are those the kinds of kind of desperation, like you apply for the job and you work so hard and you try to get it and then you don't get it and then you're like, ah, and then you're like, how I'm supposed to trust God? Doesn't make is I don't know. So I'm kind of, my question to you is more like, could you give me an example
Yes,
of?
that will be a good example, when things just doesn't go our way, and in the middle of the frustration of not going our way, we're thinking in how do I do to make things go this way
Mm,
instead of slowing down and try to remember, hey, I'm not the doer.
okay. So what I heard is like, yeah, it's like in the moment, you're in Rajas. I'll call that passion, right? I know it
Hmm.
well, right? I know that mode very well. So say we're in Rajas and we're, trying to accomplish something and then it all falls apart and what we want is not happening. And in that, we have options in that moment of like, keep clawing for it, keep like struggling and striving and like determined and attacking it. Or in that moment, we pause. Yeah. And we go, okay, this is not at all what I want. It's not at all what I think is right or best. And in that moment, I mean, you're asking for a tip. Wow. I mean, that's a hard one. A tip for what could I do to remind myself in that moment that there's a bigger picture.
Hmm.
There's a bigger picture. Um, you know, there's so many things. I don't know what's going to work for each person, but I'm like, it sounds cliched, but I'm like, what comes to me is remembering the times in my past when I thought things were going wrong, and then later it turned out for my best interest. Or, I think all of us could probably have like a short list. Now I'm inspired. Maybe I'll write a little short list of those times, and I have it somewhere in my office so that when those times are coming, I can remember that and see that. But yeah, trusting. I think it's an exercise of trust, right? It's an exercise of trusting that we are loved and we are supported and that things are for our highest good. And sometimes it is a karmic thing. It is a debt we're paying. Sometimes we lose something, or I mean, I have a car accident, right? So like, am I paying a past debt in that moment, or am I learning? I'll tell you, in that experience, there's so much I can learn from it, like how precious life is and how, oh, I'm actually not ready to die. I'm actually thinking sometimes like, yeah, when I'm going to die, I'll be all right because I feel like a loving connection to God, and I'm going to transition. And then in that moment, realizing, oh no, that car accident was good for me because now I see, oh, I have a long way to go to actually make peace with a transition out of this body. I still very much think that I am Haripriya. So, and I am a mother and I am a wife and I do need to take care of these people, right? So, and I'm not saying that that's right or wrong, but in your case, like if it's not getting a job or not getting something that you've worked for years to accomplish, in that moment, there might be a deeper lesson. There might be. I'm not going to say there always is, because some part of me says sometimes it is just paying our debts. Like, okay, I burned some karma off, and then sometimes it's to redirect us into something that's better. And it sounded to me like where you were coming from is like, if I'm not satisfied, maybe it's not my seva. I heard you say something to that effect. Like,
I was thinking something like that. Perhaps in like the things that we're doing, sometimes we feel like we're doing it in the best way possible, um, especially in the day to day in our jobs, But many people may feel that they don't have fulfillment in what they do
mm,
to earn a living.
mhm,
They may feel it more in other activities, in other areas. So that would be something, definitely. Or it could be even in our own communities, when we're doing seva and we're doing it with an open heart, but perhaps we're not finding, that moment like, oh, this is it. However, apart from that, I will think that what you said is also very true, that we're all very different. And I think this will be a wonderful opportunity to have a conversation on the chat, on the comments, to hear from other people about what has worked for them, in the past. And perhaps find
Mm,
some inspiration from other people too.
yeah, I
Definitely.
appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, what's worked for me in the past is crying and prayer. That's that's what's worked for me. Just being honest. I mean, and there's been times when it looked like I there's been times sometimes you're being tested and you do need to keep going in exactly the direction you're going. And then other times you're in the wrong direction and your God's trying to put blockers so you get some redirection. So I think it's a very I'll say it's subtle. It's like our internal. I think that the more that we read Bhagavad Gita, the more that we chant Hare Krishna, the more that we dovetail our anything we do as an offering, or we think of God, or we talk to God. I feel like then the louder the Paramatma, the inner guide, becomes, like the more easy we can hear the inner guide, and then the more we listen to that, like and you know what I mean. Like sometimes your gut is telling you to do something and your brain is telling you to do something else. And it's like in that moment, whatever you do is going to get stronger. So like if you listen to your brain and you kind of go, oh, I didn't listen to my inner guidance, that voice I feel like does get a little softer in that experience. Whereas if you hear that and you feel that pull and you go towards the inner voice, even though your brain is telling you, no, no, don't do that. That's illogical or whatever it's saying. And you're like, no, something inside of me is saying to go this way. And you do that, then that voice becomes stronger. And so for me, when I hear your question, it seems like it's a nuanced question. And I think each scenario is could be a possibly different, I won't say result, but the best thing for you could be actually different directions in different scenarios. And I think the only real way to know that truly is to ask God and to like and try to get that inner voice to be stronger, and be genuine in that moment. You can literally be like, this is what I've done, this is what I understand, this is what I'm thinking, Krishna, like help me understand what's the bigger picture here, or am I missing something, or am I, so I for me that's always what's worked, is sincere, like giving it to God in a sincere, authentic way, um, laying your cards out, so to speak. And yeah, I
Thank you
would love
so
if
much.
anyone in the comments, listening, wants to give input of like what works for them in those moments of like they're struggling and it feels like everything's going against them, or how do they handle those moments.
Yes, we will expecting any comments in the chat or later on, and we could retake this in another opportunity, in another format, some way. But I thank you so much for the last part, because I noticed too that sometimes when I am in rayas, I'm thinking too much as the doer of what do I need to do different, and I
Mm,
don't typically stop to ask Krishna for
mm,
help
mm,
or for guidance, because I think at that moment that I know what I'm supposed to be doing.
mhm.
So that's definitely something that I need to work on more.
I hear that. Yeah, I hear that. Like in those moments, you're relying only on yourself. And that's like
Yes.
that's a powerful place to be. That you're like, I'm powerful enough to figure this out and make changes, or what do I need to do differently? And you're asking yourself all these questions, and that's powerful. And you're seeing, oh yeah, it's rare that I stop and I go, God, like, am I missing anything? And like I'll say, slow down for a moment, take a few deep breaths, and like allow yourself to listen, or allow in a moment for yourself to be guided, to ask for guidance. Yeah, I definitely think Krishna's going to guide you better than I could.
No, but this was a wonderful opportunity sharing with you this scenario. I want to also take the opportunity to thank Lynn and Sienna for joining us live, and for everybody who is going to be looking at this video later on and who may want to join in the conversation. And I hope everybody can be with us in a next episode of Ashram Talks. Thank you so much, Haripriya, for being here with us. I will see you when I see you next time.
Thank you.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.